You'll be delighted to know that Vanessa Pullman, so she is going to be on after the break. Vanessa has been doing she said this is a lovely idea, Angel, and one of hers is the Shakatak Jill Sarwood decided to cover her very first soul track, and she's proud of this achievement because she says she's not musically trained and her background is completely different and would have never thought my work would be recognised in such a way by such talented artists. I'm thankful to the universe and the people that support me in my expression, not just in my music but other areas of life, e.g. coaching and writing. So that's fantastic. So she co-wrote a track with Anders Olinda in 2019. Moving on, so we're going to be hearing more from Vanessa just after the break. Oh, wonderful. The sound of Otis Redding. Merry Christmas, baby. I hope you're feeling festive on this Tuesday evening. And as promised, I said we were going to have a special guest on the show, and I'm really, really honoured to welcome Vanessa Pullman. Have I said that right, Vanessa?
Yeah, almost. It is Pullman.
Pullman.
More of an emphasis on the two O's.
Yeah, Pullman. I like it. It's an unusual surname, Vanessa. Where's it from?
It is an unusual surname. It's originally from Mauritius.
Oh, there you go.
So, yeah, it's very unique. There's not many Pullmans around.
No, I like that. That means she's extra special. I've invited Vanessa onto the show because, on the show we advocate and support women in the music industry as well as the people from the LGBTQ+I community, and Vanessa and I connected on social media a little while back, and I know that you're a soul singer and you're a writer, and I just thought it'd be really interesting to bring you on, find out a little bit about the Soul Collective you're a part of and kind of what you do as an artist, and just to shine a light, because we've all had a bit of a tricky time this year, and I think it's a really positive thing to be able to shine a light on people who are trying to raise themselves up and do positive things in spite of the challenges that are going on. So for people that maybe not familiar with you, can you just introduce yourself and just tell the listeners, because you're a singer-songwriter, is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, just introduce yourself, please, Vanessa.
Yeah, sure. So, as a singer-songwriter in predominantly the soul arena, but I also cover genres such as jazz, funk, a bit of R&B as well, and neo soul. So it's quite varied. Also a bit of soulful rock too, which is quite interesting.
Like a bit of soulful rock.
I was in a rock band. It's like an amateur rock band with a few friends when, just before I moved to Bristol, actually, because I was living in Bristol for 4 years.
Yes, until before you moved to Cardiff. So how did you find your time here in Bristol?
Absolutely loved it. What I really loved about Bristol is how it unleashed my creativity. Because prior to moving to Bristol, and I think I've mentioned this to you before, I wasn't really engaging in music as much, like in terms of, creating music. I mean, I did a couple of covers, but it's only until I moved to Bristol that's when I actually wrote my first song. And I was very much inspired by, the song is called Moving On, and I was inspired by the person that co-wrote the song with me, who's Anders Olinda. And Anders is Bristol based, and quite a few people in Bristol know him because he plays in different venues. But he was like a major inspiration to get me to develop further my music, because prior to that, I always looked at other people and admired what they did, and I thought, oh, that's wonderful, but that's not something I could do, which is interesting.
That is interesting. So Alanda's helped you with that. Was there anything else that helped you kind of turn around and flip that switch, that actually, no, I'm going to give this a go?
Yeah, I think it's also other musicians in Bristol, actually, because I attended a lot of live music events. I went to the likes of, you might know these venues, but I went to Gallimofrey.
Oh, yes.
The Stable, which is right in the centre of town, and also Number One Harbourside quite often, because they've got amazing musicians there. And there's loads of other venues as well. There's like a huge list that I used to attend, because when I moved to Bristol, I got really excited about the live music scene. And I just went to as many events as possible. Yeah. And I met quite a few different musicians who also inspired me as well. because they heard, like, you know, I went to a couple of open mic nights as well, and they heard what I did, and they said, "Oh, we really like your vocals on that, and you've got a very soulful tone to, you know, what we hear." So, you know, I kind of I saw it as a sign. You know, when people feed back to you, it's kind of like a universal sign to say, right, you should be doing a bit more, perhaps.
Absolutely, and that makes sense. And Bristol, being known for its live music and stuff, is often described as a hotbed for creativity. And
Yes.
I wanted to talk to you more about that, because I know that you sort of the manager and lead singer of an international soul collective. But I was really curious as to what first sparked your passion for soul music.
Yeah, I think it started. It started as young as the age of 8, actually, that I really liked soul music. And I think with many people, you know, when you have a sibling who's really into something, and they're an older sibling, then they act as a bit of your role model. And my sister was into soul music at the time, so I would just listen to what she listened to. And it was the likes of, you know, well, a bit of Stevie Wonder, the great soul artist Aretha Franklin, and that inspired me to listen. But I also went through phases, because I think, you know, when you're in your teen years, you kind of go through like different emotional phases.
Oh, you sure do. You sure do.
Yeah.
It's quite funny, isn't it? It's like you sort of grow into it, and it's a maturation into certain types of music, but we need to have an outlet to get some of that angst out.
Exactly. Yeah. So
I feel like we should play some of your music just to get it into context. So I've got a track here, Moving On, that you just referred to earlier. So it was a collaborator with Anders Olinda. I hope I've said that correct.
Yeah, that's right.
And is there any particular story behind this track in terms of moving on? What does it refer to?
Yeah, so that was born in Bristol, that track, and I moved to Bristol because I wanted a new life. You know, I was previously in Reading, and I was ready to move on to a new stage of life. So the song itself is about like rediscovering yourself, because I think that when I moved to Bristol, I learned a lot about myself just by enjoying like the creativity that was out there, but also the people I connected to. And I learned more about the fact that I was more creative than I thought I was.
Oh, yes. So, you just need the right environment, the right ingredients, just to kind of get those juices bubbling. Excellent. Let's hear some of this moving on. So this is Vanessa Pullian. Better pronunciation. Sorry. And this is Moving On. You're listening to Angel Mel on the Spread Love Show for Ujima Radio and 98 FM.
Energy and motion
beautiful music from our guest, Vanessa. Moving on and moving up and moving in the right direction. I love that. I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about the Soul Collective that you manage. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So it's called Soul Emotive, and I think the name speaks for itself, really, because as I mentioned previously, I'm really into soul music, but there's a lot of emotion behind the music that I do, and I know that that's kind of general for most musicians, is that when you create music, it's based on your emotions. But to add to that, I would say the music that I create is also based on personal experiences. So, I mentioned about Moving On being a song about rediscovering yourself and then moving on to a new stage of your life. And then there's also a second track that I sent to you that I'm sure you'll introduce at some point. That's also about my own personal experiences, and that's how I write music. And so Soul Emotive itself is a collective of musicians, originally Bristol-based musicians, but it's now expanded to musicians around the UK, and then some from other countries abroad too. And it was only created a couple of years ago, so all this is quite new, really, to me.
You mentioned before that you've been working with sort of different people whilst you're in Bristol, and you've got quite a few names of who you've collaborated with. We've mentioned Anders Olander, so you've got Omar, Noel McCoy, PB Arnold, who is one of Tina Turner's Ikettes, wow, and Jill Sarwood from Shakatak. I mean, what was it like working with those people?
So it's actually Anders who'd worked with Noel McCoy and Omar. Okay. However, I have been in touch with Noel McCoy, and we're looking at doing a collaboration next year with Anders too. So the three of us, and maybe some other musicians, because I absolutely love Noel McCoy's voice. I think he's got so much soul in it, and he's actually classed as the godfather of British soul. So that would be amazing to work with him, and he's such a lovely guy as well. So, the person in that list that you've mentioned who I've collaborated with is Jill Sarwood from Shakatak.
Okay. Tell us a bit more about what that experience was like.
Yeah, so that's quite an interesting story in how I started to collaborate with her. It's so when I released Moving On, which like I mentioned was last year, I created the track, and as I said, I've only really been engaged in the music for the past couple of years. So when the track was created, I didn't quite know what to do with it, like in terms of marketing it, etc. And it's been a huge learning curve for me. So it kind of lay a bit stagnant for a while. So I thought, I've done the track, I've sent it to a few people that I know. But then I think it was kind of just prior to lockdown, I started to build a database of contacts, like musical contacts. Noel McCoy being one of them, and then Jill Sarwood too. And it's just kind of happened mainly through Facebook.
Good old Facebook. Well, there are times when it works really well, Facebook, and you get to sort of network with people that you might not normally have an opportunity to speak to, especially now as we can't go out to venues and so on and so forth. So it's good to hear Facebook doing something positive, connecting people.
Yeah, I think it's great for that, especially at the moment, as you mentioned. So what I did was, and as I did with many of my contacts on Facebook, I sent them just a copy of the track. I'd done a video that I put together myself. That was a new skill that I discovered. I can actually make mini videos.
Excellent.
And I sent it to a few people and Jill Sarwood, not really expecting anything back, to be honest. But with Jill, she responded and she explained that she gets loads of tracks like on a daily basis from different musicians to say, can you have a listen? But with our track, she said she heard the first 3 seconds and she just loved the sound of it.
Oh wow.
And she said that there was a lot of space in the track as well. Like it's kind of like a space to feel the emotions and then be transported somewhere else. So she was really impressed with it. And then I got another message from her saying, would you mind if I cover this track? And I was like, really? Wow. Normally it's the other way around, isn't it?
Yeah, it's some positive feedback.
Yeah, so that was great. And I obviously jumped at the chance and I said, yes, I'd love you to cover it. So this was during the first lockdown, actually, that she decided to cover the track. And we all had to do a video as well, which was interesting. So there's like, myself, there was Anders in the video, and then there was Jill Saywood herself. And we had to record some snippets of the video. And there's like one snippet of me in the garden with absolutely no one around.
I thought you were going to say with absolutely nothing on. Oh, saucy.
Well, that would be more interesting.
Sorry, carry on. So you made your videos.
I was just surrounded by trees and then the grass.
Oh, beautiful.
And then there was me writing, because I had to like show that I'm the writer of the song, because I wrote the lyrics and the melody. And it was just quite bizarre, really. But we put it together, and then Anders did a snippet of himself playing the keys in his flat. And then you had Jill, who lives in Sardinia.
Ooh,
so
lovely.
Her snippets were like beautiful countryside of Sardinia, and then the architecture, which is amazing. So we put all that together. So I was in Cardiff, Anders was in Bristol, and Jill's in Sardinia.
Love it. The modern...
an international video.
Yeah, it just goes to show how technology can bring people together. Oh, my love, I'm just mindful of the time, and there's so much more that I wanted to ask you, because that already sounds like one of the highlights of your career so far. I was just wondering if you had any other highlights that you wanted to share briefly that you've enjoyed.
Yeah, I think to reiterate, working with the likes of Anders Olinde, he's absolutely amazing musician, and he's one of those people who are very modest about what he does, but I think he's absolutely brilliant, and I'm really looking forward to us doing more music and then also future collaborations.
We've got anything
I think
in mind?
One of the other highlights, actually, before I have to mention this, was one of the people that I sent my track to was Tom Brown, who sang Funky for Jamaica.
Yes.
And I got very positive feedback from him, which was amazing, because I love that song, Funky for Jamaica. It's one of my favourites. And I've, because he likes the music, I've asked him if he wants to collaborate. Now that's something kind of, we'll see how that goes.
It's in your vortex. Hopefully it will manifest.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
You never know. 2021. It's all to play for.
Let's see what happens. I'm kind of just allowing it. I allow for the creative flow, and I feel that the people who will collaborate will be the right people. Absolutely. For the music that I'm creating. So.
And it seems to be working well so far. It's brought you into contact with many people, and you're having such a positive experience. One of the things I wanted to ask you, in terms of, we all know that it's been very challenging this year, but whenever there are challenges, that means there's also space to overcome these things. I was really interested in whether you have any highlights of this year or valuable lessons that you've learned about yourself moving forward that you might not have otherwise known if you hadn't gone through this experience. Is there anything in particular that you could share?
I think it's... I think the word that always comes to mind when I think of 2020 is adaptability.
Oh, yes.
And I think that's really important, because we're in a very weird situation, aren't we? And this has never happened in the whole of my lifetime, at least. And it's just thinking of alternative ways of doing things. So I've learned to be highly adaptable, because now, when we created Soul Emotive, the plan was to actually travel internationally, but that can't be done right now. So you just have to adapt and look at alternative ways of being able to communicate your music. And I feel that, obviously you mentioned the likes of social media is one way, and then musical streaming. So, but I think that applies to everything else. So it's not just music, it's just everything.
Yes.
Have to find alternative ways that suit you. And I've learned that I am highly adaptable from this year.
Oh, yes, the whole adapt and evolve. And, oh, my dear, we've almost run out of time. I can't believe it. It's been such a lovely interview. I wanted to give you an opportunity to share your social media links with everybody so they can check out the Soul Collective and check out your music. What's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
The best way would be to go to my website, and that is www.soul-emotive, so spell emotive.com, and all my links are on there. So, all the social media links, you've got Facebook, Instagram, YouTube as well. And then I've also got a page where you can even buy some of the music. So you get to sample them. You have a 30-second sample of it. You click on the play button and you can hear it for 30 seconds. If it's something that resonates and you like it, then you can buy it too.
Excellent. Now that sounds really, really good. So do head to the website. And thank you, Vanessa, so much for coming on to the Spread Love Show. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you here with us this evening. We have got another track from you, Raise Your Hand, which I'm really much looking forward to sharing. But thank you again for coming on, and I look forward to hearing from you in the new year.
Thank you so much, Angel Mel, for having me on your show. And I want to wish everyone a happy Christmas and happy holidays and happy New Year.
Excellent. Thank you, Vanessa. Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Inside my mind, 'cause I promised myself to leave this all behind. All alone I felt when living through these tears. You were raising your hand to me. Raise your hand if you know this pain. Oh yes, you do, you do. Maybe thinking you're insane. Well, you ain't. Time to recognize that you are beautiful. You are. You will rise, and when you do, you'll say you're no longer able to get inside my mind, 'cause I promised myself to leave this all behind. All alone I felt when living through these tears, and you were raising your hand to me. Then based on someone else's pain, thinking you were better in the rain. Now that you understand, you were never what they said. Strength is something that you'll find inside. You're no longer able to get inside my mind, 'cause I promised myself to leave this all behind. You're no longer able to get inside my mind, 'cause I promised myself to leave this all behind.
You're listening to Ujima 98 FM, the heart of Bristol.